For tonight's assignment, we're going to make a basic Twitter application, because if there's one thing the world needs, it's another Twitter client. So from a single view application template, we'll name our project, and we'll see that Xcode has created a default view controller. We won't be using those, so we'll delete them from our storyboard and from our project. We are going to be using the tab bar controller available in storyboard, so we'll drag that out. Our third tab will be a list of tweets retrieved from the Twitter Search API. We'll drag out a navigation controller, which by default will have a UI table view controller as its root view controller. We'll add a last view controller, which will be the detail view controller. When we tap on our table view, it will show us more detail about the tweet. We'll control click from our tab bar into our navigation controller to make a relationship connection. We also want to present our favorite tweets in a table view, not a standard UI view controller, so we'll delete that and we'll replace it with a table view controller. We'll control click from our tab bar controller to make the connection to our table view. Overall, your storyboard should look something like this. We're going to create a feed table view controller that will query the Twitter Search API and present a list of tweets. Create a custom UI table view controller we'll call feed view controller. We're going to implement the view will appear method, which will trigger the download of our Twitter feed data. We're going to implement the download Twitter feed method and use Grand Central Dispatch to query Twitter for the search term Apple. Remember that this is not the safest way to download data. We're going to declare an NS mutable array named Twitter feed that will hold our downloaded data from Twitter. We need to go back into storyboard and make sure that our table view controller knows what type of custom class it is. If we run the app, we can see from the logs that we are able to successfully download the Twitter feed. Now we'll implement the table data source protocol methods. We have one row. Our table will have one section, and we'll have as many rows as are returned from our Twitter feed. Depending on your internet connection, there's a chance that the table will actually load before the data is done downloading from Twitter. What we need to do is update our download Twitter feed method to reload the table after the feed has been downloaded. We call the table views method reload data. Next, we need to let our table know what kind of cells that we're going to be filling in the table. We'll change the cell identifier to feed cell. And then back in storyboard, we'll select our cell and give it reuse identifier feed cell. We'll use the subtitle style cell, which will allow us to display the tweet and the author. Back in our implementation file, we will set the cell's text label property to the tweet text and the detailed text label property to the author. We can use the NS string with format call to style the author with the @ symbol. Now when we run the app, we can see the tweets returned for the search term Apple. We changed the title of our view controller to Twitter feed. And we want to create a segue between tapping on the cell and the detail view controller. A push segue. And now we need to create custom UI view controller class to display our tweet details. We'll create a property called current tweet of type NSDictionary that will hold the tweet that's passed from the table into our detail view controller. We'll drag out some labels to design our interface and make the proper outlet connections to our header file. Add a UI bar button to the navigation bar controller and create an action called Add Tweet to Favorites. Click on the segue and give it a unique identifier. Back in the feed view controller, we'll implement the prepare for segue method, and we'll set the tweet detail view controller's current tweet property based on the row that was tapped. Back in the tweet detail view controller, we'll implement the view did appear method. And set the text in our labels. When designing our interface, we made a mistake. The UI bar button we added obscures the UI navigation controller's back button. So we'll go back into our storyboard to fix this. We can see that the back button is now implemented properly, and we have the add button. Next, we're going to implement a new feature in iOS 6 called UI refresh control. This is the ubiquitous pull to refresh behavior that became popular in the official Twitter app. Now it's a built-in control inside iOS. We had a target action mechanism that will fire off the method refresh action when the table is pulled. Implementing the refresh action, we will requery the Twitter API. We need to update our download Twitter feed method to tell the refresh control that we're done. This will turn off the spinner. When we run the app, we see that pulling down on the table will refresh our Twitter feed query. Back in the Tweet Detail View Controller, we're going to implement the Add Tweet to Favorites method. Tapping on the UI bar button will save the dictionary of current tweets into an array that's stored inside of our NS user defaults. Back in Storyboard, we're going to update our favorite table view controller. We want to put the UI table view inside of a navigation controller so that we can have access to the navigation bar. We'll drag out a navigation controller onto the storyboard and make the connections. Next, we'll add a custom class favorites view controller. We're going to add a class extension property called favorite tweets of type NS mutable array. This will be the local storage for our favorite tweets from NS user defaults. In our viewDidLoad method, we're going to fill our favorite tweets with the data from our NS user defaults favorite tweet object. Again, we give our cell a unique identifier, favorite cell. That way we can reference it back inside of the implementation file. We'll go ahead and set the text label and detail text label properties of the cell to display the tweet and user. When we run the app, now we can see our favorite tweets. To enable editing for the table, we're going to uncomment the self-edit button item that Xcode had stubbed out for us. Next, in our table view commit editing style method, we're going to add some logic that removes the tweet from our favorite tweets array. When we tap on the edit button, we get the built-in table editing behaviors. Next, we uncomment the methods table view, move row at index path, and this allows us to reorder the table. We add the logic to reorder the array. Now, back in editing mode, we can sort our favorite tweets. To make a custom cell, we go back in our Attributes Inspector and set the style to Custom. We can resize the cell and drag out other controls, such as UI labels, to style our cell. We'll create a new custom class, Custom Tweet View Cell, and make sure that our cell and storyboard is associated with this class. Go ahead and make all our outlet connections between our labels and our custom tweet view cell header file. We won't implement anything above the standard getters and setters created by the compiler. We give our cell a unique identifier, custom tweet cell. Now when we request a cell, we want to cast that to be our custom tweet view cell type. Make sure to import the header. Now we need to update our UI label properties of the cell with our data from our dictionary objects. Now we have a custom cell. Now, if we can only build a time machine to go back 5 years, we would have a top 10 Twitter app.